Hi everyone. I'm gonna get started shortly. Just give me a sec. We'll get started pretty promptly at 6:30. All right. Cool. How is everyone doing today? I um I had a pretty productive day. I hope everybody else did as well. Um, it is 18:30 or 6:30, and we're gonna get the last mentor session kicked off here pretty soon. So, as always, I really like people to say hi in the chat. So if you're in the chat, feel free to say hi, and I will start this streaming. Yeah, now. Um, So, everyone, welcome. Thank you very much for coming to my stream. And I'll just introduce myself a little bit. My name is CJ. I'm one of the main organizers for Let's Games Tokyo 2025. And I also go online as illuminesce. And I've been organizing the site since 2020. And so throughout all of that, I've picked up some tips and tricks, and hopefully I can share them with you today so that you will feel a little bit less alone when you come to Global Game Jam. So, if anybody is having difficulty hearing me, please let me know, and I'm just gonna get started. All right, so welcome to the stream. If you have never been or participated in a global game jam, I am super curious to know how you found our site. But please feel free to talk about that in the chat. And welcome to our stream. Welcome to the site. I'm really excited to have you. And my name is CJ. I am a designer, an artist, a indie game dev, and a co-organizer of Let's Games Tokyo. My other co-organizers are Ryan and Matt. I am also bilingual, so I speak both English and Japanese. So, もし質問があれば日本語でも大丈夫ですけど、I didn't have a lot of time to prep, so I'm going to go with my native language. I'll try to make sure that it is easy and clear for everyone to understand. I am on Blue Sky at illuminesce, Itch also at illuminesce, and I have a little newsletter for the indie game studio and design agency that I co-run called Studio Terranova, and it's at Button Down. So if you're interested in any of those, please feel free to follow. So I want to talk a little bit about the site. Let's Games Tokyo is in Roppongi. It is at Code Chrysalis, which is a coding boot camp. They very graciously allow us the space every year and have since 2020. And this year it's going to be starting from tomorrow, January 4th to 26th. And the site is very unique in the sense that it is, one, not a 24-hour site, so it has a closing time, and two, that it is very bilingual and international friendly. So we have a lot of people from a lot of different nationalities, and are looking to have a good split of Japanese members as well as international members across all nationalities. So the idea behind Let's Games Tokyo is for everyone to have fun, to collaborate, and to learn something new. And we try to make our site as beginner friendly as possible. It's a really good opportunity for us to connect in with the indie game dev community. So there are events in the Tokyo game community like Tokyo Indies and Games, and those happen once a month. This happens once a year, but it is a very targeted weekend where you're going to be working together with a bunch of other people, and I really encourage and appreciate open collaboration with everyone. So for those of you who, let me grab the link, but there should be some remote tickets left on Piatix, and I will give you the event here if you're interested. For those of you who are already signed up, congratulations. There we go. And feel free to invite your friends remotely. Spots are full right now. We do charge an entry fee, and this is the first year that we've charged an entry fee, but it is primarily for the snacks and drinks, and so we are typically self-funded. Were we to have a sponsor, it would be awesome for snacks and drinks to be covered, but we do charge a small entry fee for folks wanting to participate with us in the jam. Cool. And also, throughout this presentation, feel free to ask anything about the site if you have any questions about how to participate remotely, or if you have any questions about how to participate, where the venue is, that sort of thing. I'm more than happy to answer questions. Cool. Alrighty. Okay, so just a general question to the chat. What is your relationship to game development? So by that I mean, what is your... are you a student? Are you an indie game developer that's had a published game? Are you a game dev who hasn't had a published game? Are you working in the industry? Are you out of industry? Are you just in general interested in stuff? Feel free to post your answers there. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with the game development community. So I started doing game development in 2005. I know that sounds like I'm very, very old. I consider myself relatively young, but that being said, I started in 2005, and during that time, if you were a programmer in 2005, this was kind of the vibe. It was pre-Unity, or Unity was just sort of starting out, and so it was very much like we're spending a few months writing shadow shaders by hand. Everything went very, very, very slowly without engines underneath because we had to build our own engines. So it started from that, and these were some of the first games that I made in a club called the Game Creation Society. So we made a survival horror game, and we also we made a survival horror game, and then we also made a game that was a game that was an RPG that was called Arbalith. And yeah, I didn't really know that much about game creation when I first started. I knew that it was really complicated and that there were a lot of moving parts, but I had no idea what the vibe was going to be like. So after making and contributing to multiple games, I started to get an idea or a feel for what it actually meant to be creating games, and then moved on to things like Global Game Jam. So my first Global Game Jam was in 2013, and I've been doing Global Game Jam for 10 years now. So 5 years was as a jammer, and then 5 years has been as an organizer. I made a game about... So the waffle game was not a game that we did at Global Game Jam, but it was a game that I did together with my partner, where we hooked up a video game to a scent machine that was giving waffle scented scents, and the player could generate infinite waffles until the game crashed or broke. And that was a fun one. We got to talk about it at a sort of like indie scene in around Fusebox Festival, which was an art festival. We did something called Three Monkeys, which was a VR game that was like a puzzle VR game that is supposed to be played between you and three other players. And Channel Drive, which was another Global Game Jam game that was a racing game. So we, meaning myself and my partner, have made a game called Terranova. It's about the early 2000s era live journal scene. It's also about fangirls, old school Fujoshi in the early 2000s, and it's called Terranova. Hence our studio name is Studio Terranova. You can check it out at Play Terranova. It even has solitaire. It's got a lot of role play, a lot of blogs, a lot of chatting. It's a really cool game. I would consider it semi-autobiographical of the times. So actually, what you might not know is that Terranova started off as a Global Game Jam game called In Her Eyes in 2019, and it took us 3 years to polish and finish the game overall, but we started the game itself in Global Game Jam at the CRI Shibuya site. And people seem to like In Her Eyes, so we kind of pulled, I guess, pulled it out a little bit more. And the more we pulled it out, the more it was just kept going and going and going. And now Terranova is about a 7 to 10 hour playthrough game. So it's got a lot of story. There's a lot of stuff that was added in there that wasn't previously there. One of the things I also wanted to ask or talk about with In Her Eyes is that you don't necessarily have to polish your game to a finalized game. In fact, I think a lot of the games that I have made just kind of like die on the vine, or otherwise, are good as a tiny game or as good as a concept, but they don't really warrant like 3 years of full, polish. But I think that that's one of those things that is up to you. And if you have checked out Phil's Solomar's previous stream, that also talks about when you want to polish your game, that sort of thing. So I'm going to put that up later on YouTube, and I'll also put all the socials up for Global Game Jam Tokyo here. So you might be asking yourself, all right, so if you have made all of these video games, then you're a rock star programmer, right? Like you've got all of these mad coding skills. And I would consider myself more of an artist, honestly. I'm the kind of person who gets good in a skill to actualize a particular vision. So I would call myself kind of a jack of all trades of everything. So I program a little bit. I do art. I do music. I have done 3D modeling in the past. So I've touched a bunch of different skills in and around the game, like game development, but haven't maybe have gone deep on like art and writing, I suppose. But outside of that, I think for me, games are a medium to create something, like to create some message. And so I never got to complete pro level, but I also work really well in teams. So I work together with a lot of people who are much more knowledgeable about programming than I am. But I will talk to you a little bit more about like what I know and that sort of thing. So you can take it from me. I've touched many, many different parts of game development. I can vouch for the fact that I might have an expert blind spot in terms of having done this for a while, but also you can trust me in terms of pointing you in the right direction when it comes to new and related things, because we were all newbies once. So, first, let me talk about what you need for the game jam. So, things that you might want to bring is a Wi Fi enabled computer and charging cables. You might want to bring a pen and a notebook to sketch out your ideas. If you're going to go the way of art or you want to try out some art, then maybe a digital tablet if you have one, sketchbooks, pencils, and a camera if you want to capture photos or photography. Music supplies, so things like a mic, instruments, your own voice, software that's pre-installed on your computer. Of course, you can install software um, on the night of the jam, but if you have a particular area that you want to focus on, it's totally fine to pre-install some pieces of software. In fact, you can do that tonight or tomorrow morning, such as photo editing softwares, music mixers, game engines, and terminals. And last but not least is some kind of version control. So GitHub is the general standard for lots of things. Perforce is industry standard for video games, and then Diversion is one that I've just recently heard about through Johnny Cash's stream. So really, you only need one and two. If you're not looking to spec on anything, I think having just a computer and charging cables or a pen and notebook. I also want to call out that you don't have to make a digital game. You can make an analog game. You can make a board game. So in that situation, you don't necessarily need a computer either, unless you're looking to print out something. All that to say that games are things that people play, and that's not necessarily limited to digital things. So let's dive a little bit into art supplies. You can use anything to make art. In fact, you can use physical things like pencils, paints, paper, whatever you want. As long as you can photograph it, you can use it. A lot of digital backgrounds in visual novels are actually photographs that the artist has taken. So, for instance, if you wanted to go outside and take photos of Tokyo and then come back inside and use them for your game, that's totally fine. Digital are things like drawing tablet or mouse. Drawing with a mouse is really hard. It really messes up your wrists. I don't necessarily recommend it, but if you want to go hard, go for it. To give you like a personal example, you don't really have to use any sophisticated art programs. So I think this was last year. Yeah, so this was these are character sprites from last year's Global Game Jam. Oh wait, no, it was the year before then, 2 years ago. I did a game called Ike Bunny, and it was a game about these little bunnies with flowers growing on their backs. And one of the diversifiers, which I'll get into later, one of the diversifiers was putting all of your assets in MS Paint or making all of your assets in MS Paint. And so I opened up MS Paint, was a web, like a web refinishing of MS Paint, and made all of these sprites. So you don't necessarily have to make it very sophisticated or anything like that. Just putting things together and drawing what you know, I think, is the key to getting your ideas out there. Just as sort of a small thing, I'm in the process of updating and polishing Ike Bunny, and I feel like I tend to do everything very high effort, being an artist. So I went from MS Paint to actually physical paints. And so I was doing work in watercolor, relearned watercolor, and did some work in watercolor for Ike Bunny. Hopefully, I will release that game sometime soon, but right now it's sort of been on a back burner, like side project is just a cute thing that I like working on from time to time. But watercolors, and I used a stabilized iPhone camera and just took a picture of it, and that's the, you know, that's what is going to be in the game. And for animations, because the camera is stabilized and it doesn't move, I can actually move the little pieces around and just keep taking photos to make something that's a little bit more like stop motion stuff. So really, like, you can use anything to make art. You can also use anything to make music too. So things like sound effects, if you're using Foley effects like crinkling paper or slapping to add sound to your games, you can do things like this, where you can make sounds in front of a microphone. I think also crinkling paper is another thing. Let's see if I have a piece of paper to crinkle. Or like, right? Depending on how good your mic is, the mic will pick up those noises, and then you can use them in video games. Songs like strumming on a guitar or singing. So I have a clip from Global Game Jam 2018 that I participated in, and this was of a very unusual music making device.
Right. Right.
So yes, even a frog, you can make frog sounds if you want. I actually, speaking of frog sounds, I was listening to the devlog of a person who made a game called, I think it's called Desktop Frogs, and she was saying that she got up, she was working at 3 a.m. and she decided that she was going to make frog noises in her mic, and that was going to be the sound effects for the game. So she was like, or beep, 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 when it came to the frog noises. And I think that just shows you how much range and how much creativity people can have during jams. So really just feel free to experiment, get crazy with it. All right. I'm going to give you a overview into art software and music software and 3D software, all of the different types of software that you can use to put on your device, and just give you kind of a lowdown of all of them. So Photoshop, the Adobe suite, that would be this one right here. This is something that a lot of people use. Also, Clip Studio is used for comic artists. So if you're in the comic book scene, you probably have seen Clip Studio. For pixel graphics, Sprite. And an alternative to Photoshop is Affinity Photo. It has very similar features to Photoshop. So if you're used to using Photoshop, or you're looking at Photoshop and you're saying, I don't really want a subscription to Photoshop, which totally fair, then Affinity Photo might be a good fit for you. Krita is entirely free, so that's KRITA. This one is one that people use a lot. Back in the day, people used to use GIMP a lot, but I don't know how much people are using GIMP. I think that the current, I want to say like standard when I'm thinking about like commissions and stuff, is Procreate. Procreate is a app for the iPad that allows you to turn your iPad into a very powerful drawing device. So I use Procreate a lot. I also use Affinity Photo a lot. I also use Sprite and Clip Studio a lot. I kind of cut ties with Adobe a while back, so I don't really use it that much for that. So Affinity Photo is, let me actually just... can't remember what their like situation is in terms of. Yeah, it's expensive. If you haven't already bought it, like you're not willing to, you know, buy it right now, I think that's one of those things you might just want to wait until it's on sale. But Krita is very good and reasonable. So there's Affinity and Krita. Yeah, and all of these here. I think this one, I think Clip Studio went from a single pay to not a subscription, but in order to get the updates, you have to go to a subscription model. Sprite is single pay, so honestly, there are so many good tutorials for Sprite. Highly recommend. Cool. As for music software, if you're going to be recording your own music, you might consider GarageBand. That's for Mac and then also for the iPad. Cakewalk, which I believe has. I think that also that's for Windows as well. And then if you're looking for like pixel music or like sort of chiptunesy type music, both Pico 8 and Beepbox are really, really good. Beepbox is completely free, so it's very, very cool. All right, Nabby's has used Cakewalk on Windows, so highly recommend. You can just kind of like mess around here. Got your scale here. See? Easy song. So definitely mess around with this. You can also customize the instrument. My God. There are so many tools available for you that are free or low cost. Also, if anybody else has like music software that they swear by or any music software that's easy to use, feel free to drop it in the chat. Cool. All right. So getting into 3D software, the industry standard is Autodesk, Maya. And then in general, what I've used mainly is Blender. I also wanted to say, even though it's not 3D software, it's like 2D.5. Live 2D is really cool. If you haven't seen like what Live 2D can do, let's see if this is kind of the like vibe of what Live 2D can do. Is it'll take a drawing and it actually can make it look semi-real. I think that this is actually really good for people who are, you know, starting off in 2D, and maybe don't know that much about 3D stuff, and they just want to, you know, get a character on there and do a little bit of modeling. Live 2D has a one, it has a really good tutorial that's very specific, and two, it's also one of those ones where it has like an automatic mesh, so you can upload your drawing, click the automatic mesh, and then it'll give you an automatic mesh for that drawing, which I think is cool. So yes, 3D software is there. You know, if you're for those of you who haven't really experienced like working in 3D before, when you 3D has two parts to it. One is the actually three parts to it. One is the actual thing that you make, that you sculpt. And that's done with these programs. And then the other thing that you can do is make a texture. Now, texture can also be used, like you can make your own texture in these softwares, or you can also upload your own image to these 3D softwares if you wanted like a custom texture. And if that's the case, then you can use these art softwares to generate that texture. And then the third thing is rigging. So like making a skeleton, making it move, that sort of thing. So some 3D things in your game are just not going to have any rigging involved because they're like a tree or a box or something that doesn't have any sort of animation or movement involved. But then if you have a main character, somebody who's like walking around or something like that, then you are going to have to do rigging. Cool. So now I'm going to get into kind of some Q&A in general about game jams or, global game jam in general. I can give you my experience with that. If you don't, I'm going to move the chat down a little bit. Um, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask them in the chat. I'm more than happy to like extend the session and see what kinds of things. I just realized this is two things at the same time. Anyway, whatever. Okay, so what's your ideal team size? In general, 3 to 5 people. And more than that, you need someone to be a project manager. Most people, when they're coming to a jam, are not that interested in being a project manager, but if you have project manager experience or you just want to be a project manager, you can join a larger team. What a project manager means is somebody to make sure that all of the tasks are in order and somebody to make sure that when somebody is done with a task that is summarily passed to the other person, because everyone's going to be working on all of these little parts and then you're going to integrate your parts together. Sometimes you're going to integrate them on Saturday, sometimes you'll integrate them on Sunday. Either way, there's going to be integration happening, and to facilitate that, if you have 5 or more people, you tend to need somebody who is helping with that facilitation. What should we focus on Friday? So let me give you a rundown of the way that the jam works. So at least for Let's Games Tokyo, we start the jam. We start letting people in at 5:30, and then we start talking with folks or like doing the presentation at 6:30, and we ask people to be on site by 7 or 7:30 ish, because that's when team creation starts, and missing team creation can be very hard to kind of like get back into a team, especially if people are starting to work on stuff. So what you should focus on Friday after you have your team and everything's good is to shape your idea into something that is fun and doable in the weekend. Global Game Jam has a very limited amount of time, and honestly, I think shaping is really important for any game jam. I think it can be a lot harder if you have a game jam that goes for about a month, because you have all of these different other responsibilities that aren't necessarily related to the game jam itself, and that's something that you can end up kind of losing the plot or maybe overscoping because you say, oh, I'm not going to be busy this weekend, but then you end up being busy that weekend. But Global Game Jam is very laser focused. It's 48 hours. You have to get it done in 48 hours. So what does shaping look like? Shaping can be something like sketching, whiteboard sketching, digital sketching, doing some initial feedback on the design. So you can make an entire game, and you can make an entire game out of paper, or you can make an entire game that's just sketches and try to explain it to someone and ask them if that seems fun. Just getting like kind of a vibe or a check to see if it's a game idea that's worth pursuing. So then you want to decide the hook and the major gameplay. So the hook is what is interesting about your game. What's the thing that kind of like draws players in? Pulling players in. So for instance, if you said, "Oh, it's like Metroid, but everyone's a dinosaur," right? So for people who are like, "Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan of Metroid," that like the Metroid part has hooked them, right? For people who are like maybe don't know what Metroid is, but they're like, "Oh, I really love dinosaurs." I mean, I think both of those things can be something that really like grabs people and gets people into your game. And then what's like the major gameplay loop? So if we're talking about like rebuilding something that's Metroid, but everybody's a dinosaur, then the major gameplay loop might be something like we want to make sure that there's enemies, that you're in a room, and then there's enemies, and you use your special skill to defeat the enemies, and then it gives you a like thumbs up or it gives you a win condition. So this is like the major gameplay loop. If you simplify Metroid down to its basic elements, there's a room, there's enemies, maybe there's some treasure involved, but there's usually a person and a main character, and the main character can do some kind of skill to get to the next room, or do some kind of skill to kill some of the enemies. And also prioritizing. So what are you going to cut if you run out of time? This is an extremely difficult conversation to have on Friday, but I highly suggest you do it because come Sunday, you're definitely going to be thinking like, okay, what is it that I can cut? What are some things that are not, high priority for me? I would suggest, and this is kind of a hot take, not coding on Friday unless it's to set up version control. Version control will allow you to make sure that you are, if somebody adds something and it breaks the entire game, you can roll back those changes. So this is very helpful for situations in which a bunch of people are working on one thing, because if you don't do that, then you're going to have to like manually unfuck, and I don't know if I can say fuck on the stream, but you have to, manually unmess up the game. So what are some things that you should focus on Saturday? Making the core game loop. So remember when I talked about game mechanics? This is game loop is built out a little bit more from game mechanics, which means what is the sort of core of your game. So, for instance, you have a title screen. Somebody comes and they open a chest, and that chest has a skill in it. And then we go to a room with enemies, and then you kill the enemies, and they say, "Good job," and then that's the end of the game. That could be a reasonable game loop for a game. You want to code out the game mechanics. You want to make basic art assets, story, music. If you're doing 3D assets, Saturday is not the time to be rigging or like doing like fancy animations or anything. Just like get the assets into your game, and it doesn't matter if they just like move around, without any sort of animation whatsoever. That's totally fine. I promise making the core game loop is like the most important thing to focus on Saturday. So you want to build the entire loop from the time that the player starts the game to the win and lose conditions, if there are any. In the cases of games that you have multiple endings, you want to make sure that you at least have one win and one lose condition. Maybe you don't have multiple endings. Maybe you have, one ending, the good ending or the bad ending. And you want to make sure that you have that all kind of put together. So then Sunday is when you're going to build out things. This is about polishing and integrating assets. I like to say if you're writing for a game jam, you write the beginning and you write the end of the game jam game, and you just assume that the middle is not going to be used, but if you have time on Sunday, you build the middle of the game. So for instance, if you say, he was a great warrior who had been spurned by his kingdom, and then something, then he became the great king of the country, right? Country, nation, whatever. The middle is completely missing. The journey part is completely missing. We can assume from a story perspective that the game loop or the gameplay mechanics are going to fill in that, but from a writing perspective, if you just set up the story situation and then you end the story situation, that's enough for a core game loop. Unless there's like multiple levels or multiple stages that you have to get into. If you have any extra characters, add them. Something I'd also add is add animation here. Also, I hope that your game doesn't crash. uh, I I can't tell you how many times games crash on Sunday and people are like really stricken, or games crash on like Saturday night. If you're lucky, then it won't. But if you do, then congratulations, you've gone through a game jam. And then focus on uploading your game and then demoing your game. So at Let's Games Tokyo, we're going to be having demos from 5 p.m. onwards, and uploads start from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. ish. Typically, people will need more time, so we usually start the presentations a little bit later, at like 6 or so. And then we do a little demo party with pizza and everything. It's very, very cool. It's very neat. I am so looking forward to Sunday because the energy is super hype on Sunday. I'm also looking forward to all the days, honestly. All right, so you've given me very specific advice. I shouldn't code on Friday. I should build the core game loop on Saturday. I should you do. I should polish things on Sunday. So what if I just ignore it? What if I say, CJ, I don't think I'm gonna listen to your advice. Okay, sure. I mean, yeah, like do your thing. You're an adult. You can. I mean, everyone at this site, I think, ostensibly is 18 plus, so you do whatever you want. I don't really care, but I will say that from 10 years of doing Global Game Jam, in general, that's like what I would advise you to do. All right. So I mentioned not being a rockstar programmer, but if you're interested in learning to program during the Global Game Jam, which is awesome, you should definitely consider taking this opportunity to learn, because it's a cool opportunity. You want to start small. Start small. So what that means is that if you have any like how do I say, experience programming with other things, you might want to do things like for intermediate coders. But if you've never touched code before, highly recommend doing low coding game engine stuff. Let me just double check. You're gonna see the here we go. So these are our game jam recommendations that were put together some time ago by myself and Nabbies and Sharky and Tippo. And these are ones that we knew about. Maybe things have changed. I try to update it every year to make sure that everything's good. But the heart indicates like popular engines for Global Game Jam. So low coding or no coding is like RPG Maker. I will caveat this by saying that RPG Maker, I think, does require code if you want to do like custom stuff. For really basic things, you can use RPG Maker. Twine, Bitsy, Decker, RenP, Narret, Construct. They're not all low code or no code, but definitely just getting started, you can do it without learning. And as Mabby said, low code engines can be a really good way to prototype ideas too. If you're like, I don't know if this is going to work, let me just try this. In fact, Terranova, before we built everything, was prototyped in Twine. So I mean, it's a good way of trying to test if you have like multiple endings or things. Just like check it out. I think I have. I'm gonna share this bad boy here. For like beginner coders, I think Unity is okay. Honestly, I mean, it can be really overwhelming. I would definitely. Oh, I'm sorry. RenP is for the beginner coders. I see how it goes. I forgot my own formatting structure. But yeah, Godot is definitely passing Unity right now uh, in terms of like how do I say uh, easy to like get started stuff. Um, Something I wanted to there it is. Um, Something I wanted to let y'all know is that Unity actually sent us some goodie bags. So I wanted to share with you the Game Jam. They have like a little Game Jam support document. So if you're wanting to know anything about Game Jam support, and also they're doing a 15% off sale in the asset store with Global Game Jam 2025. So if you do a Unity game and you think you want to get a cool asset from the asset store, you can get that there. So continuing on, Godot is good. I really want to dig into Godot because I think out of all of the 3D engines that I've looked at, Godot feels like the one that would be the easiest for me to kind of like sink my teeth into. For intermediate coders, Pico 8, honestly, I used Pico 8 also for Game Jam, so like it's totally learnable within a weekend. Uh, love Game Jam challenge mode. If you did like caught Johnny Cash's stream, he was saying that if you're choosing to learn Unreal Engine when you're at a game jam, you are, as the British say, making a brave choice, and I completely agree with him that Unreal Engine is very hard to get into. However, it's not outside the realm of possibility that you could be on an Unreal team and just kind of learn from other people. But definitely, if you're in a team and everybody is like a beginner, and you say like let's use Unreal, I might suggest against that. But again, like do what you want, You're an adult. Um cool. So, oh yes, and Panda 3D. So both Phaser and Panda 3D are not ones that I particularly have used that much, but they were on the list because we were looking at them. So those are Game Jam engine recommendations. Some of them are web based. Oh, I also wanted to say another one that I don't have on here is Pulp, which is the engine for the Playdate. If you don't know what a Playdate looks like, it's like a little, yeah, uh, it's a little like device that here it is. That's what it looks like. It's really really cute, and it has its own like little dev kit here. So I'm curious about using Pulp. It has kind of the same engine structure setup as Bitsy, and I've used Bitsy pretty extensively to make games. But yeah, it's a cool little like game maker. So that's another one that's like low to no code. Cool. Also, don't have to do programming. As I mentioned before, here are six other things that you can do that aren't programming. You can be a game script writer. You can be a level designer. You can be an environment artist. You can be a character artist. You can be a sound effects person, or you can be a composer. There are many, many, many things that are involved in video games, and video games is very much a group effort. It is can be very, very difficult for one person to do every single thing, unless you're the kind of person that wants to like get into every single thing. I guess that would make me somebody who would be good at solo dev, but at the same time, I think I prefer being in a team. I prefer working with other people. It's much more motivating. Cool. All right. That is it. I keep moving the chat over it. It's always in the way. All right, here we go. So yeah, thank you. You can follow me on Blue Sky or Itch or on newsletter. I did want to go a little bit into like explaining the Game Jam site for those of you who are signed up, just to kind of give you an idea. But give me a sec while I like pull pull out the Global Game Jam. Yeah. Oh, chat. To up here. Okay. Cool. All right. So this agenda can be accessed via email or also via Discord. If you do not have access to either, please let me know. My email is illuminesce@pm.me or just regular illuminesce on Discord. This is going to be your guide for like the weekend's resources. First, you want to get a Discord and a Global Game Jam account, and you want to introduce yourself in the introductions channel. I mentioned that if this is your first time, here are some things you should bring. So as I said, we're going to start at doors open at 5:30, and the event is going to start at 6:30. For remote people, we're going to be starting streaming at 6:30, and the welcome keynote video will take about 30 minutes. I just saw the keynote video and I noticed that it's taking about an hour, so I'm going to try to figure out if there's like a place that we can, I think that we need to watch all of it, but all that to say, I'm going to look at it again. And then from 7:30 to 8 is going to be group forming, and then at 8 we're going to start the jam. That's going to be for the remote people. This is where all of these things are happening. And then day 2, we're going to ask everybody to do just a quick check-in at 10:30. The jam site's going to open at 10. Really, everybody doesn't have to check in. You can have one representative from your team check in. It's totally fine. We keep it really loose, but the idea here is that to make sure that if somebody is struggling or like misplaced or something like that, that we have everybody is able to kind of like bring up any issues before they occur. And then the jam is going to start. And then on Sunday, same thing. So venue opens at 10, check-in is at 10:30. If there's any changes to that, sometimes people want to check in earlier, or like want the venue to open earlier. Again, we have the venue for the weekend. I am not going to be staying well into the late evening time, but the morning time wake up could be variable. And then we're going to check in at 3 p.m. is when the uploads should start to the Global Game Jam website, and then at 5 p.m. is when we're going to do the game demos. And then after the game demos, we're going to have a little after party, and that's where you set up your game, people eat pizza, and we hang out and we talk. Cool. This is the Global Game Jam site and Discord, so this is where you can get it. These event rules are for you, but honestly, I mean, yeah, please read them before you have before you do the event. I'm not going to cover this on stream, but do read the rules, participation rules, especially around just making sure all of the other jammers feel safe and respected in the space, and also around alcohol. This site is after 6 p.m. a BYOB, or bring your own alcohol, bring your own beverage site. If I see you messing around or in general causing like difficulties for anybody, I'm kicking you out because I don't have time for that. So please be responsible when drinking alcohol, and just be a responsible person at the jam, because we're here to have fun and we're here to be excellent to each other, as they say in Wayne's World. So your Global Game Jam organizers, it's me. That's what I look like. And that's what Ryan looks like, and that's what Matt looks like. So we will be there. Mabby's and I speak Japanese, so even if 日本語でも大丈夫ですよ. Will be good. Um, and for those of us who were joined last year and who are wondering what's different this year we are going to kind of, previously we had the mentors all together in like a mentors table, which I thought would be easier for consulting, but then it just ended up being isolating to the mentors. So we're going to sprinkle them around with everybody. So we're going to call out, there's two people that agreed to be mentors in Pingable, and then we're just going to sprinkle everybody around. We might ask people the jam site, if you are somebody who is interested in like mentoring or interested in being pinged, to just give us your information so that people can do that. And then I mentioned about resources. All the resources that I talked about are here. There's tons and tons and tons of resources, and then also any past mentor sessions and past demos. Here is the Global Game Jam YouTube. If you want to see any past mentor sessions, wait, where did I go? What happened? Yeah. Oh, and this one is cool. So, Global Game Jam has this thing called diversifiers, and diversifiers are could be considered challenge mode, but they could also be considered like just fun things for your game to have to do. Um, so just to like read out the diversifiers. So Peace Formers is a design a web playable game where players take action about how resources are shared and divided. Keep the peace among all groups in a fair and equitable way. Nurture Yourself with Nature. Design a web playable game that tries to boost the mental health and well-being of players by connecting and deepening personal bonds with nature and easing eco-anxiety. Outplay Hunger. Design a web playable game to encourage actions which encourage players to reduce food loss and waste, and how to achieve a healthy food diet in your school, community, or country. Control Alt Disinfo. Create a game that builds critical thinking skills to increase awareness of and skepticism around disinformation. And great games come from everywhere. Design a game that's inspired by unique culture, history, geography, or traditions in your region. I'm certain that the Global Game Jam Tokyo folks might have a lot to talk about here, because we've got a lot of cool international folks. Oh no! Oh, Mabby's just watching this, but I just noticed that there's a Y2K diversifier. So it's been 25 years since the start of the new millennium, celebrated by implementing in early 2000s, late 90s aesthetics such as Y2K futurism, Frutiger Arrow, Metal Heart, etc. I am looking forward to your very nostalgic takes. So it looks like there's some old school stuff. Your music has a single melody which evolves as the game progresses. So yeah, definitely like check these out, because they are really cool, and they're actually a really cool like starting point on Friday if you're like thinking about your game, to just kind of like inspire some like cool thoughts or some cool ideas. So yeah, that is it for Global Game Jam for newbies. Don't be afraid. Get excited. Our jam site is going to be really, like I said, it's bilingual, so we are going to have people who are speaking maybe not your language fluently, which is also something that I think is really fun and cool. So get out there and challenge yourself. Nice. Okay, so I figured I'd take some questions from people. If anybody in the chat has questions for me, they can be about my own experiences in game jams, organizing Global Game Jam, what kinds of games I've seen made or have made before, um, tips, tricks, anything to expect for this weekend, anything at all. while you're doing that, I'm gonna relink the PATix website for remote. If you have any friends that you want to participate remotely, please feel free to have them sign up here. We're hoping to get a couple other people so that folks can form a nice little team together. I think currently we have. Let me just check here. Mm, I want to say we have 3 remote people right now. No, we have 5 remote people. Oh, cool, 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 cool. Yeah, that's great. That will give us a solid team. So yeah, we have up to 10 remote spots. So if you're interested and you live in like the general Japan area, um, Hokkaido, Okinawa, totally okay. Feel free. Cool. All right. Well, if there isn't any other questions, I will probably get to um, just hanging out tonight and doing some other stuff and preparing for the jam mostly. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Um, I didn't put my Discord here, but it's illuminesce, so you can find me at any of those things, socials, that sort of thing. And I hope that you have a really excellent and good night. Um, it was really fun to prepare this, and it was also really fun to talk with you tonight. Cool. All right. Take care, everyone, and have a excellent evening time. And if you are joining us at Global Game Jam, Let's Games Tokyo, I hope to see you in person or online, and we will talk soon. All right. Take care, y'all.